everybody knows about sports. That's why, in the island, every sport journalist or every sport broadcaster is always under the spotlight, sometimes for good reasons and others not so good. Jimmy Castillo Cuesta is one of the members of the new breed of sport broadcasters here in the island. His has become an usual face in the screen during sports transmissions. Used to sit in the interviewer's seat, now will be him who answer the questions because he's our guest today in from Havana. Well, Jimmy, thanks a lot to have said this interview. It's a pleasure for me and for all the team of Telesur. It's complicated to interview an interviewer. Have you ever been in the interviewer's seat before?
Yeah, sometimes when you are in different programs, when they invite you to talk about your career, about your profession, yes, sometimes, but mostly in that seat.
I know, but what do you prefer? Do you like to be interviewed? I don't like to be interviewed as a journalist. I don't like it.
No. Me neither. I like to be in the interviewer place, I don't like to be interviewed.
You are not a journalist. I mean, you're a journalist, but you did not study journalism. You start studying language. How was that time?
Yes, that's right. I didn't study journalism as a career for 5 years. I studied English language in Pinar del Rio, in the Higher Pedagogical Institute. I became a teacher, an English teacher. I studied for 5 years there. In Pinar del Rio, indeed, I also worked in a high school for 4 years, teaching students. And I liked that, but I always had, that of sports. I always liked the sports. And then it came through the years, the change of the profession.
Before that, how was you as a child in Pinar del Rio? You were a quiet child, or you were those child that the mom has to go after him? Hey, let's go to the shower, let's get out of the street when you were a child?
No,
quiet or a riot kid?
No, I consider myself as a quiet boy, Indeed, in fact, I like to study a lot. I always like to be 100 points in all tests. I was one of the most advanced students at my school. There were some girls there that liked to study a lot, and I was a male, always there are the females, they are the most outstanding students, but I like to be that competition too. And since I was in elementary school, I like to study a lot, mathematics, Spanish, history. I like a lot of history. I've read a lot of books about history. That's important, and I think it had given me, some background about our country, given me culture. But I consider a quiet boy, always studying. I attend to school, and when I went home, I do my homework, and then I helped in my house.
You lived in the same Pinar del Rio?
Yeah, in the same Pinar del Rio city.
Did you practice any sport when you were younger?
Yes, well, I play baseball as a normal kid, in every place. But I practiced swimming for 4 years. Yes, I was in a elementary school there in Pinar del Rio that I had a kind of arrangement with the Special Sports Institute in Pinar. And they have some professors specialized in swimming. We have a nearby swimming pool, and every day I went in the morning. I used to go in the morning to swim like 3 hours in the morning. Then I came back to the elementary school. We had lunch there, and then we went to lessons, to have our lessons. And when we finished, like at 5, we also go to the swimming pool. We used to go to the swimming pool for about 1 hour and a half. There were some times that we used to swim 2 hours in the afternoon. When you sum up everything, it was like 5 hours a day swimming. It was hard, when it was cold and you had to go to the swimming pool, it was hard.
And sacrifice, yeah. But you ever thought about being a professional swimmer? I mean, to spend your life swimming? You wanted that?
I like that very much. I was in the special team of the school. We used to go to another municipalities in Pinar del Rio for competitions. We used to go to San Cristobal, to another municipalities to swimming competitions. And I like that. I was, focused on that. Without disregarding my studies, always taking into account my studies. I always wanted to be 100-point student. Always I like to be that. I want to be a competitive student, always. But I like that of being in the swimming. But there came a time in which I was in 5th grade in elementary school, and there came professors from the Special Institute, or Mani Arenado in Pinar del Rio, what we call in Spanish, EIDE, that Special Institute.
It's the academy.
Yeah. The professors came and they were making some tests. and they wanted me to go for the special school in water polo. Water polo. And I like that, I always like the swim, all the sports related to the water, I like always to be inside the water.
How old was you at that time?
10 years old. 10 years old I was at that age, at that time. And the professors came and they made me some test. I passed the test, physical test, swimming. They asked me about also sports, if I wanted to be a water polo practitioner. I said, yes, I like that. But they told me, well, you have to bring us the agreement from your house. Then when I went house to my home, I used to live with my grandparents. My mom lived backwards, but I lived in the front of my house. All people together, but I used to live, I was raised by my grandfathers.
That's really common here.
My grandmother and my grandfather. And then I was talking to my grandfather about that. And my grandfather told me something that we use in Spanish, like, the dog has 4 legs and only takes one way. So he told me, you have to decide yourself. You want to be a student, you want to study a career, you want to get a degree, or you want to be a sportsman. So you think about that yourself. Think if you in sports will get all the levels that you can get in the academy, studying a career. So you think about that. So I, thought about that. I put things, in a balance, and I said, well, like a sports, I don't think I will get so far. And also, water polo, swimming in our country. At that time, nowadays, we have had some good results.
Yes, good results.
Also in the...
Maybe people that play with you at that time were in some teams that we got medals in.
There were students practicing swimming that they even came to the national team here. They didn't go to the Pan American Games or something like that. And that also made me think, I won't get so far in swimming or water polo. Instead, I got so many people behind me. I know in which play I know. I'm not the first.
And you were a good student, so you had chances also.
I'm not in the top 10 in swimming here. So when I go to Havana or I go to the institute of all the province, I won't be among the first. So I better continue in this way, studying. So I will study. I will do my best to be one of the best students. And then at that time, I didn't think which subject I will study in the future. When you are young, you have to want to be a doctor or an engineer. That's the most common subjects. But at that time,
or an athlete, you got it both, and you had to decide.
I decided to continue studying.
But I'm gonna take a jump in the questionnaire.
Yeah.
Do you think that a sport journalist is a frustrated athlete? I mean, most people think that people who dedicate his life in journalism to the sports are frustrated athletes. Are you frustrated because you didn't become an athlete?
I don't think.
Are you okay with your decision?
See, I'm okay with my decision. I don't think we are all frustrated sportsmen. That's a common theory, nowadays. What happens is that most of sports journalists, in a time of their lives, they practice sports. What happened that they have to make a decision, like I did. Some of them are frustrated. I don't like to be, a baseball player. Baseball player is one, I think, in that way, it's one of my frustrations. I would like to be a good baseball player, but I was not good. I used to play in the street, in the open spaces with my friends there, but I didn't have that big quality, to continue.
Like all the mortals, the mortals, yes.
In baseball. But in such a way, I think there are some people who are sports journalists who consider frustrated sportsmen, others not. We have both sides.
Then how did you arrive to Havana? When did you came to Havana?
Well, I came in 2008 during the Olympic Games in Beijing. I was already working in television in Pinar del Rio as a sports correspondent there. And the people here in Havana, they asked for different journalists in all the provinces to come here during the Olympic Games to make the broadcasting here in Havana. So many journalists,
coverage here
the coverage. So many journalists and sports broadcasters have gone to Beijing, to China, and so they needed people here in Havana to work. So I remember at that time we came 8 from different provinces. We came.
I remember you actually
Yeah,
from those days.
at that time came Randolph from Ciudad de Ávila, Vladimir from Holguín, Luisa, that now is working with us in the sports channel, from Camagüey, and I came from Pinar del Rio. That was my first time in Havana.
But before that, how did you came to journalism, or journalism came to you?
That's a good question. I was working as an English teacher. I've been working like 4 years since I had my graduation. I graduated in 2001. It was like 2005. And I was on vacation period, and I was listening to the radio one time. I had to recognize I was not a radio listener at that time. When I was a child, I used to listen to radio a lot. But at that time, and then I heard, a kind of news that they were promoting, a promotion about a sports commentator
In Pinar.
course, in Pinar. And then I heard that, I said, oh, I like that. And a friend of mine asked me, how do you like that? I never see you talking about sports. And I told him, no, I really like that. I have always liked to be a sports commentator, because when I was a child, my grandfather bought me a radio, an old radio, like those Panfilo shows in his program. And I used to listen to the baseball transmission all night. I used to listen to the baseball games. And then I started to go to the stadiums when I was 9 years old. My father took me there to the first time. And then when I was older, 10, 11 years old, I was living near the stadium. Then my grandfather allowed me to go alone to the stadium, even day or night time. It's quiet there in the province. And then I used to go by myself. And I had a time that I used to go every game to greet the baseball players when the games were over, and I used to go every day. So I had that inside myself about sports. And when I heard that, I went to the radio Wama in Pinar del Rio, Wama radio station. I made the test. They made some test, writing test about knowledge in sport with some questions. They also made a test about broadcasting, a game, tried to make a transmission or something like that. So I passed the test, and I started a course for a year. Then I had a degree in a sports commentator. And it was a degree that they gave from the study center from Havana. We also have teachers from Havana who went there to Pinar to talk to us. So I had the chance to meet some of the teachers from Havana, some people from Havana at that time. Then I finished the course, and I started to work in the radio station in Pinar. And after 1 year and a half, I went to the TV station, because the director, TV station director, heard me one night. He was listening to the baseball broadcasting, and it was in Camagüey, Pinar Camagüey, and the rain started. Yeah. And so I was in the booth, and I started talking, commenting about the game and other news about cycling, about wrestling, and the director heard my comments, and he called the station and told me, well, you want to work on TV? I said, yes,
Of course
I like. And he told me, well, tomorrow morning go there and meet me at 9 o'clock. I have a job offer for you.
As you grows up as a professional, the responsibility grows up with it. How do you manage yourself to be impartial during a transmission? Because it's hard.
That's very difficult.
I know it myself. It's hard to be impartial sometimes.
That's very difficult. For me, it's one of the most difficult things that I've been through here in Havana. I'm from Pinar del Rio. Everybody knows that, because I've said that in different interviews, in different programs here in Cuba. And so people knows that I'm from Pinar del Rio. Yeah. And I feel for Pinar del Rio, and I have always feel for Pinar del Rio. It's something that you have inside here, When you are in the baseball championship, you feel about Pinar del Rio. But when you are working on the national system, in the national broadcasting system, you have to learn how to put that beside, apart, and be a professional. And there are some times in which it's very difficult, very hard. But it's step by step. When I have to recognize, when I started working here, I I was too partial to Pinar. It was something that was inside me.
But people noticed that you were rooting for Pinar.
Sometimes people told me that, and even some colleagues told me you have to be careful with this. And when you make conscious of that problem, you try to work on that. You have to improve that. So after that, with the passing of time, it's something that comes with the passing of time, with the passing of years, to try to make your work so impartial so that people respect you more, because you gain respect from people making the work in that way,
You have a program now. Pulso Deportivo is the name of the. Have you ever been blank during a live interview?
Wow.
I mean, do you ever had some kind of trouble during an interview that you will I forgot what I was talking about, or like a mind block in a moment?
I think it has not happened to me. I wish I wouldn't go through that moment ever, But I think not, because I always try to prepare the questions for my guests in the program, but no, mine in black, no.
And athletes, athletes are used not to speak a lot during interviews. Sometimes you have to pull the words out of them. Have you have any anecdote of any athlete that gave you a hard interview?
Yes.
You don't have to say names.
No,
you
no.
Have
In fact, I won't tell you the names of the athletes because of ethics and to take care of our sportsmen, our athletes. But sometimes, yes, there are people who don't talk. Even when you try not to make yes or no questions. If you make a yes or no question, they will tell you yes, no, so you are with nothing. And when you are in a program in which depends from the opinions and from the guests, you have to make them talk, because it's a program for you not to talk a lot. It's for making people talk. So you have to make reasonable questions, try to create, a positive atmosphere so that they feel comfortable. Take them to your place, not to break all the block that can be, in the walls between you and the interviewer. So it's like that, But it's difficult to interview athletes. It's very difficult.
How important is, in your opinion, the specialization in sport journalism? You have to specialize yourself in some sports. It's that really important, or you have to know about all sports?
Well, in journalism, in general, I think that specialization is crucial. You have to be specialized. I don't think myself doing economics or culture. I don't imagine myself doing that, really. I like only sports. I like that, and sports journalism. And within sport journalism, it's very important to specialize in some sports. You must have, I think, a general idea of the rules, of the basics of the sports. I think mostly in here of the summer sports. And when you have the chance to broadcast winter sports, well, you go and study.
We're doing that
and
now.
Within the Olympic sports that we have here, I think every journalist must specialize also. And the sports broadcasters, in my case, too. Because it's not possible to know everything about all the sports. It's not possible. In the world, around the world, people specialize in only one sport. The people who specialize in football, what we call here soccer, is only soccer. The baseball, they are only baseball broadcaster. The people from fighting sports is only fighting. In my case, I have been specializing in fighting sports like judo, wrestling, taekwondo, and I think that those sports go with my characters. I think that I'm better, in a way. I have to improve a lot, but I think that I have more potentialities, in this sport, and also in baseball. I like baseball a lot. I like handball. You see, here in Cuba, it's not so popular handball. We have a time during the 80s and 1990s that we have very strong teams in handball. We even go to the Olympic Games. We even go to the World Championships. This year we will have handball in the Pan American Games in Lima. We will have
a really good team.
We will have a strong team with our players that nowadays they are in foreign leagues in Europe. We have people in France, people in Spain, people in Portugal.
In the best leagues in the world.
They are playing very hard handball. We are going to make a team like we did last year in the Barranquilla and Central American Games. And we think we have good expectations with that team. And I really like that team will get the first place and will return to the Olympic Games. The last participation of handball was in the Sydney 2000. But in the previous year, 1999, our national team, male, you know, yes, we got the 8th place. We were within the 8th better teams in the world. So that's one a good performance. And that's a sport that I like very much. Handball, baseball, and you know, this wrestling, judo, taekwondo, I also like those ones.
Who is or are your references in sport journalism?
I think we have a long history in journalism. In fact, you know, everyone knows that Cuba was a pioneer in television, and the first television transmission was a baseball game. The first television broadcasting in Cuba in the history is from the baseball game.
It's a little bit delay, I remember, but it was, yes.
Well, it has, sports broadcasting in Cuba is related since the beginning with the history of television. So we have many people who are references in our work, and we have to mention Hector Rodriguez, René Navarro, Eddie Martin, people who had the chance to be the pioneers, those persons who started doing all the broadcasting during the Olympic Games, Pan American Games, World Championships, during the National Championship of Baseball in Cuba. So those people, they are really references in our work. And I think that today we have very, very well prepared broadcasters that are also, you know, an example for me. We have people with a lot of knowledge, with a lot of resources at the time of broadcasting, and we have to mention today Sergio Ortega, Rodolfo Garcia, Renier Gonzalez, Evian Guerra, people who, you know, they manage well. Nowadays we have also Angel Luis Fernandez, all young people too, that they are doing very well their work. They have been participating in broadcasting, sport broadcasting in the Pan American Games, and they are doing very well. They know a lot, you know. We receive many critics, you know.
It's normal.
People are very critical with us, you know. They like to
criticize spotlight
all the time, you know.
All the time, yes.
Mostly about football, soccer, baseball, but you know, in our job, we have to prepare a lot. We have to study at least 3 hours a day, you know, in front of a computer, studying, you know, the statistics, the names of the players of the team. When you,
it's a hard work. You have a lot of young people there also.
Yeah.
What do you would say to those young people who want to be a broadcaster, a sport journalism? From your position, from your experience, what would you say
First,
to them?
Observation. They have to observe a lot how the oldest people do things. You know, I'm kind of in the middle, you know. I'm not that young anymore. I still consider young, no? But I'm not so, you know, like the other people that are older, you know, like I'm kind of in the middle. I've been 10 years. This year, it's my 10th work year here in Havana. I started officially in Havana in March 2009. I'm 10 years now in Havana, and since I started, I used to observe a lot from the people who know more than me, the people who are for many years doing that work, and you have to respect that. Respect, be silent when you have to be silent, and observe a lot how the other people do things, to ask them without pity. You have to ask. You know, there is a false tendency right now that people don't like to ask, and there is not a full question when you don't ask. Full question is that one that you don't ask. Yes. So I'm never been afraid of asking. There was a time in which I was working as sports journalist, and I used to ask a lot to Vladimir Prieto, you know. Unfortunately, passed away. But he was a very, very good professional, and I had the chance to be in contact contact with him many times, and he used to teach me so many things about that. And he was one of the people who told me once, if you really want to be a sport broadcasting, because you know here in our system we have sports journalists who do the reports, the chronicles, and the sports broadcasters who are describing, you know, the game. And I always like to be broadcaster more than journalist, you know, about this. And he told me, well, if you want to be a broadcaster, well, give the step. So give that the step, and I heard the advice. So that's the way. Observe a lot and try to learn little by little.
And ask. And I'm asking you to keep the good job, and thank you so much for this time and this opportunity to talk with a sport journalist as you, that you are becoming a famous one here in the TV. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me to this program.
Okay.